Hello everyone, my name is Faiz Ali Qureshi. Let us continue with our topic that we had reached to a climax yesterday. Let us give a very quick review. First of all, let us write today's date 21/11/2023. Now let us give a very quick review of what all we have done yesterday. Yesterday we had seen some basic facts regarding the Constituent Assembly. The seal of the Constituent Assembly was the elephant, and we have seen that some members of the Constituent Assembly called this because elephant works very slow and the constitution making process is taking a very huge amount of time. Now, the next important fact was Sir B.N. Rao was the legal advisor to the Constituent Assembly. H.V.R. Iyengar, Secretary of the Constituent Assembly, S.N. Mukherjee, Chief Draftsman, and Shanti Niketan artists decorated the Constitution. Hindi calligraphy was done by Vasant Krishna Vaidya. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was the chairman of the drafting committee. He is also called as Modern Manu. Then we had seen that Constituent Assembly had two functions. This is very important. Constituent Assembly was chaired by Dr. Rajendra Prasad for constitution making and Dr. G.V. Mavlankar for the law making part. Important events. This is important. Commonwealth membership, national flag, the tricolor. 1947, national anthem, Jana Gana Mana. Adopted national song in 1950. Vande Mataram adopted from Anand Math. This is also a question from history. This is very important. Elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Then we have also discussed the original constitution and the present constitution. Preamble was enacted after the constitution was enacted. This was because everything, the preamble is also the identity card of the constitution. So all the provisions should be in accordance with the preamble. Nothing should be against the preamble. Next, date of enforcement is 26 November 1949. Date of commencement is 26 January 1950. This is very important for law students. And the difference between commencement and enforcement is also very important. The significance of January 26 we have seen yesterday. Purna Swaraj Day. Then criticism of the Constituent Assembly. Then we have seen about the drafting committee. Students, am I audible? Please confirm. Am I audible? आवाज आ रही है क्या मेरी बच्चों? No response. So still let us continue. One is first important thing is in lengthiest written constitution. Yes, written constitution. So, in the previous lectures, I had already explained the meaning of the constitution. Basically, constitutions are divided into two parts. Are of two types: written and unwritten. Written and unwritten. So, written constitution examples are America. USA is the oldest written constitution of the world. And Indian constitution is the lengthiest written constitution. Similarly, unwritten constitution in countries like Great Britain, there is no written document, and the laws are made according to conventions. Example: the British Constitution. Now, why factors that contributed to the leading to l- this length? Can anyone tell me why our constitution is the lengthiest written constitution? I had also explained this in the previous lectures. So let us continue. One is historical factors. For example, in Government of India Act, many of the parts of the constitution are borrowed from the Government of India Act of 1935. Government of India Act of 1935, which was very bulky. Next thing is second part. The We have a single constitution for the nation as a whole, for the central government and the state governments. So India has a single constitution for center and states. Actually, there was an exception to this because Kashmir had its own constitution before the abrogation of Article 35A and Article 370. Single constitution for center and states, which makes it very bulky. Third is dominance of lawyers. As we are studying for the CLAT exam, we know that all knowledge is interplay of words. So the lawyers used high level of language. That is why the constitution is not in a very simple and lucid language. It is in the legal language. Fourth is That is why the simple words like right to life and liberty, right to life and personal liberty are having interpretations. And sorry. And we are seeing that there are there are next is administrative details. For example, in the chapter of fundamental rights, there are fundamental rights and exceptions to it also. Similarly, in the case of governor, we see that the governor is responsible to the CM, and then there are interpretations, exceptions, and many more. If this now, these were our sub points. We will start with the main points again. We will write the main points in Roman language, Roman numerals. Now, sources of the constitution. The constitution was derived from many sources. It was made after ransacking constitutions of 64 countries. So naturally, we took what what all were what all we thought is necessary for India and what all is best suited for India. Now, let us very quickly see the sources of Indian Constitution. This is very important. This is very important from MCQ point of view. First is sources of Indian Constitution from Canada. From Canada, we took the federal structure. In the case of Canada, the central government is very strong. If you have read newspapers or something like this, you must have read that there is some event called as presidential rule. In the case of presidential rule, the central governments go in complete control of the state governments go in complete control of the central governments. So federal structure. This is can be divided into two parts. Strong central government. Strong center and governors are appointed by the governors by center. Actually, president appoints the governors, but whenever the case of president is there, it indirectly means that the council of ministers does that function. Next, we have to study about is advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Advisory jurisdiction means wherever the government is in a is in confusion regarding some issue, it can go to the Supreme Court for advice regarding a particular law or something like that. So this thing we have adopted from the Canadian Constitution. Next is residuary powers to the center. Actually, the Constitution contains three lists in seventh schedule. The matters which are not included in any of this in any of these lists are included in the seventh schedule. These three lists are federalist, federal or central or union list. We'll only write union list, then state list, then concurrent list. Now, the second thing we will see is first we have seen about Canada. Next, we will see about USA. From the USA, we have adopted Office of the President. The Republican model that we have adopted is from the USA. Here, President is the head of the state. Similarly, in India, President is the head of the state, but Prime Minister is the head of the government. The Prime Minister, government of India is headed by the Prime Minister, who is responsible to the Council of Ministers, Office of the President, then and impeachment procedure. Impeachment procedure means removal process. Removal process. Now, let us move forward with our topic. First is Office of the President and impeachment process. Next we can see is next the fundamental rights. In the US Constitution, there is a chapter called as Bill of Rights. So the idea of fundamental rights we have adopted from the Constitution of US and A. Next, the process removal of judges of Supreme Court. Actually, with great power comes great responsibility. So, if there is an instance where the method, conduct of the judges of the Supreme Court is not appropriate, then there's a process for removal of the judges of the Supreme Court. This is a very important process. We will learn about it when the lecture proceeds on further to this topic. Next is Office of Vice President. Office of the Vice President. The Office of Vice President we have adopted from the American Constitution. Next thing we have adopted from the USA is judiciary, model of judiciary. Judiciary. In this part, there are two things. One is independent judiciary. Independent judiciary means it is not under the control of legislature. There are certain provisions in the constitution to enable this independence. For example, the salaries of the Supreme Court judges cannot be deducted unless there's a financial emergency going on in the country. Next is judicial review. Judicial review means the power of the Supreme Court to check the validity of laws. And if it is found that the laws are not according to the Constitution, then Supreme Court can declare such laws as invalid. Now, the third source of the Constitution. Third, from United Kingdom. First, we will see from Ireland. From Ireland, we have taken the process of election of president. Election of president. Similarly, another thing that we have taken is directive principles of state policy in part 4 of the Constitution. And fundamental rights are included in part 3 of the Constitution. Next thing that we have taken is nomination of members to the Rajya Sabha. Nomination of members to the Rajya Sabha. Now, fourth thing we will say is the fourth source of the Constitution, United Kingdom. United Kingdom. From United Kingdom, we have adopted the model of single citizenship. In India, a person can be a citizen only of this Indian state, means the country, and not um citizen of two countries, neither a citizen of Maharashtra or a citizen of Bihar or a citizen of UP. We are residents of states, but citizen of India. But citizen only of India. Citizen only of India. Actually, this is very easy to understand, but for your understanding, I've written this. Next is actually many bio describe that American Indian, but you can only always be a citizen of India if you're a citizen of India. You cannot be a citizen of two or more countries. Next thing is, acha, single citizenship promotes national unity. Next thing we will see about is bicameral legislature. Bicameral legislature. Now, what does this word mean? Bicameral legislature means that in the legislative system, the parliament is divided into two parts, upper house and lower house. Lower house.
हेडबोर्ड आहे ना हेडबोर्ड का काय हेडबोर्ड के रूम में
Now let us continue with our third thing that we have adopted from the Constitution of UK. The third thing that we have adopted is of CAG, Controller and Auditor General. Controller and Auditor General. Article 148. Article 148 of the Constitution. Actually, CAG is the office which sees that the finances are not misused for any other purposes. Now, let us see the fourth thing that we have adopted from the Constitution of United Kingdom. First, the law, equality before law. Article 14. This thing we have adopted is the thing equality before law that we have is adopted from the Constitution of United Kingdom. The next important thing is Law-making process. Law-making process. If you see all this now, you can see a pattern where many of the many of the things of the constitution are somewhat related to the British constitution. This is because British were ruling India for 200 years. So there was bound to be the carrying forward of some traditions. Next is law making process. Okay, done. Law making process is already done. Like in India, we have three readings of a bill. First is introduction. Second is second reading involves detailed scrutiny. Third reading involves third reading involves voting on the bill. When all this process is made, the bill becomes an act. Next thing, and after getting the assent of the president, the bill transforms into an act. Only when an act is in present, there will be penalties if you break the law. Now the fifth source is Germany. Fifth source is Germany. From Germany, we have adopted emergency provisions. That is suspension of fundamental rights, suspension of fundamental rights during an emergency. Germany. This we have adopted from the Weimar Republic. After the World War I, Germany was ruled by a government, Weimar Republic. This was an elected government formed after the World War I. Next thing we will see is France. From France, we have adopted the ideal of republic. We have adopted. France was the first. France was the first European country to declare itself as a republic after the French Revolution. So the idea of republic we have borrowed is from French Constitution, and ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity. We will dive into detail about these words when we study the preamble. Next important thing is Russia. Russia. From Russia, from the Constitution of USSR. We have adopted the idea of fundamental duties. This part was not included in the original constitution. Article 51 A, fundamental duties and ideal of justice. Justice means fairness, and this word is included in the preamble. After we start the topic of preamble, we will dive into this concept into details. Now, let us understand the next important source. 8. Republic of South Africa. Amendment procedure means editing or changing some part, changing some provisions of the constitution. Next thing we will see is, as I have already explained in the previous lectures, that the Rajya Sabha members are divided into two categories. One is nominated members, the other one is elected members. So, as we have already seen that nomination of members to the Rajya Sabha is adopted from the Constitution of Ireland. But the process of election of Rajya Sabha members is adopted from the Constitution of South Africa. Election of Rajya Sabha members. Next important thing is Japan. 9 is Japan. Japan. From Japan, we have adopted the concept of procedure established established by law. Actually, Article 21 says that no no one can be detained deprived of his or her life except according to the procedure established by law. So now let us move forward. 10th part, Australia. Australia. From the Australian Constitution, we have adopted concurrent list, concurrent list. Second thing that we have adopted is freedom of trade, commerce, and intercourse. The third thing that we have adopted from the Constitution of Australia is Joint sitting of the joint sitting of the two houses. This is the process that was adopted when there is a deadlock with regard to a bill. There are certain restrict conditions of this joint sitting that we will see after as we proceed with our topic and with our course. Now, the most important thing is we have discussed that the Constitution of India was very bulky. One of the important reasons for that is Government of India Act of 1935. Now, let us see what all we have adopted from the Government of India Act. Government of India Act 1935. From this act, we have adopted the Office of Governor, if you must be confused here because in the above part we have written that appointment of governor is according to the Canadian Constitution, but the office of governor is taken from the Government of India Act of 1935. At that time, Government of India Act designated a functionary as governor, under whose name all the business of the state government was carried forward. Here, appointment of governors. Now, let us move forward. Office of Governor. Second important thing is federal scheme. Federal scheme means the powers of the central government and the state governments and the arrangement of these two layers of the government. Next thing is judiciary. The judiciary that we have is Supreme Court, High Courts, is adopted from the Government of India Act of 1935. There are some changes about in the names, but that model is adopted from the Government of India Act of 1935. And the Public Service Commission. The most famous exam in India is the UPSC. So these public service commissions are adopted from the Government of India Act of 1935. Fifth important thing is emergency provisions. This is all for today. Let us give a very fast review of what all we have done today. Let us continue the two important topics derived from many sources. Then, so today we have completed the sources of the Indian Constitution. This is very important from the exam point of view. So we have started with the salient features, lengthiest written constitution. Then we have seen that constitutions are of two types, written and unwritten, American Constitution and British Constitution. Then factors which caused the which caused this lengthiest written constitution of India. First, we have seen that historical factors, such as Government of India Act, which we have just done now. Then, single constitution for center and states. Then, the lawyers, most of the members of the Constituent Assembly were lawyers. This we have also seen yesterday. Administrative details are included in the Constitution. Many constitutions, for example, the Constitution of America, does not contain the brief provisions derived from many sources. Then we have seen the sources of Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution was a hopscotch of many constitutions, but it was not a copy paste, but not an instance of copy and paste. Each provision was debated and adopted to suit Indian conditions. Canada, then US, Ireland, United Kingdom, Ireland, USA, Canada, Ireland, United Kingdom, single citizenship and all this. Then we have seen from Germany, Weimar Republic, then France, then Russia, then we have seen South Africa, Japan, and Australia. Then we have seen about the Government of India Act of 1935. Thank you everyone. This is all for today from my side. Let us take if you have any doubts or questions regarding this. No doubt. Okay. Thank you everyone. We will proceed from the salient features forward.